Hi, I'm Jerry Seracuse, Jerome M. Seracuse, but Jerry is what I've gone by all my life. I was born in Niagara Falls, New York, of all places, and up until the time I was 10 years old, I was a nuisance to my parents. I was a very sickly child and required a lot of maintenance. I was finally diagnosed with extreme asthma and hay fever and allergies that were unheard of at that time. And the doctor recommended that we move. And my parents decided to take me to a drier climate. And one of my great memories of that decision-making process was that my father and I went down. We were going to be the advanced scouts and go wherever it was to see what was there. We went down to the train station, and my father boldly stepped up to the ticket counter and said, "How much are 2 tickets to Phoenix?" Dry place, okay. Got the number. He said, "How much are 2 tickets to Denver?" "Okay, we'll take 2 tickets to Denver." We got off the train and somehow my father knew about this place called the D&F Tower. And suitcases in hand, we trudged to the D&F Tower and took the elevator up to the observation deck on the D&F Tower. And you could tell that there were mountains out there, but the disappointing thing was, at that time, in 1944, there was smog in Denver, and you could not see a clear vision of the mountains. The smog, I'm told, was because of all the wood-burning fireplaces and the coal-burning stoves and so forth. So we've lived with that problem of pollution for a long time. When I graduated from school, high school, my father made it clear to me that we don't have any college boys in this family, so make sure you get out there and get a job right away. You're going to need the money. Okay, so I did that, but I had some very good friends in high school who were good mentors for me. They encouraged me to at least try to do some college work. So I worked for 4 years and saved enough money to go and enroll full-time at the University of Colorado. Now the next thing is, what am I going to study? And I'm looking at the curriculum and see here, my brother-in-law was an engineer, so I thought, well, maybe I should be an engineer. And the curriculum for all the engineering classes was had a chemistry element to it. And I said, this is not going to work for me. And I have this thing about reading things from the bottom up. So I started with the Z and went up, and I finally got to architecture. And architecture didn't have chemistry. I struggled my first year trying to understand what they were talking about. At that time, space to me was Sputnik and the satellites out there, and they started talking about space, and I thought, I'll never understand this. And then one day, a light went on, and I did a design sketch, handed it in, and my professor came back to me the next day. He says, "Seracuse, what happened to you?" I said, well, "I don't know what." He said, "You got an A on this. You finally understand it, don't you?" I said, "Well, I think maybe." And so from that point on, I had a real true love with architecture. I just absolutely could not get enough of it. After school, after college, I was into the real world. And the real world was before exam and work and get some experience. And I worked with 2 really fine gentlemen. The fellow that first gave me a job was Morse. And I had visited 30 offices. I had a list. And I finally got to Morse's office. I had to come back another day because he wasn't there, but I got there and he talked to me for a while, and he leaned back in his chair and says, well, you know, we'd like to do something for you, but we're really looking for experienced people. And I said, tell me something, Mr. Morse. If you're looking for experienced people and no one will hire anybody without experience, how will I get experience in this field? He said, that is a good question. Sit here for just a minute. He left the room, went and talked to his associate, came back in and said, we have 2 weeks worth of work. If you want to do some drafting for 2 weeks, we'll let you do that. And then we can't guarantee you anything after that. Well, I worked for the man for 5 years, and he was very kind to me and taught me many things, not just about architecture, but just about a great philosophy about life. He was truly a good mentor. I left Jared's office seeking to expand my horizons a little bit and went to work for a fellow by the name of James Johnson out in Lakewood. And 2 different fellows you have never seen in your life. Jared was a true Southern Colorado rancher type guy, and James Johnson was an Eastern guy that was polished and spiffy all the time. But he also taught me a lot of things and was a good mentor. And up until his death, we maintained a relationship. He passed on recently, sadly, but I owe a lot to both of those gentlemen, Jared Morrison and Jim Johnson. At Jim Johnson's office, I met a fellow by the name of Jack Lawler. And Jack was from Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And that's about as much of the middle of the United States as you can get, I guess. And he was certainly that way, and still is to this day. And we started cultivating a conversation about a new office. And lo and behold, after about 6 months of building up our spirit and our strength and our courage, we decided that we would start a new office. And so a new office was formed in the living room of my house on Corona Street. And we said, well, now, Jack brought up the question, well, whose name's going to be first? And I said, well, mine. And he said, no, mine. He said, well, we'll sell it. We'll flip a coin. So we flipped a coin, and Seracuse Lawler was born out of that flip of the coin, even though Jack wanted to go for 2 out of 3. We gradually grew the office. We're fortunate enough to get a few jobs in, and we expanded. We first had 1 guy, and then we had 2 guys, then we had 4 guys, then we had 6 guys, and then we had to move upstairs, and we had 10 and 12, and it grew almost exponentially to 140 people. When Jack and I first started our office, we had 3 things in mind that we were going to do. We were going to have a diverse practice. We were not going to be specialists in any one building type. We were going to try them all. We were going to look at people as being realistic clients, and if they really wanted help, we were bound that we were going to give it to them. And the last thing was, we said we're going to have some fun. And we accomplished all of those, probably with a stronger emphasis on fun than most of the other 2 combined. We had AM and PM breaks, and then we grew so large that we had to require people to come to the breaks so that you weren't just always talking about or with the people that you were sitting near, that you were talking to and enjoying conversations with people on the other side of the office that you didn't see all the time. And it fostered a lot of great friendships in the office and loyalties to one another. We also had what we called wine breaks once a month. Then we would discuss what's going on in the office, what's going on in the world, how are the Broncos doing, what's going on with the Nuggets, and all the different things that you just get a chance to jazz about. And some of the wine breaks got a little over the top, I would say. We had terrific Christmas parties. We set an all-time record of 800 attendees one year. We had 2 astronauts and a tennis pro and a whole bunch of other kind of local celebrities, and it was a marvelous celebration. We had fun. We did some religious work, half dozen or so churches around the Denver area. We did historic restoration. We first took on the Equitable building, our home, our first real office home, and had that restored. It was absolutely a marvelous, and is still a marvelous building. But over the years, it had accumulated a black color from the smoke and the dirt in the air. And when I read the book about the Equitable building and I read about this straw color of the brick, it was so emotional. I just, I fell in love again, and I had to see this building get done. And a Canadian fellow by the name of Jim Hunter bought it, and he hired us to restore it. And we got the outside cleaned, and when the outside of that building was cleaned with all the white terracotta and that straw-colored brick, it was sensational. But the largest project that our office ever encountered was being hired to do the concourses, not the terminal, but the concourses for the new airport at Denver. And that was a huge project. As all projects do, they all have stories. But I love to tell the story about the baggage system because it was such a fiasco and made so much news in the newspapers. I had another client who had asked me to go to Frankfurt, Germany, and that was on a tennis mission, which I just hated to do, but I said I would go ahead and do it. And so while I was in Frankfurt, I made an arrangement to go to the airport and see this magnificent baggage system, automated baggage system that Denver was thinking about doing in the new airport. And I was in a room of about 20,000 square feet. I mean, it's 200 by 100, huge space. And there were several of these rooms, there's not just one. And it had about a 25-foot ceiling in it. And it was all concrete. There was no acoustical treatment at all. And it was louder than you have ever heard any locomotive in your life. It was filled with trackage. And these plastic tubs, one bag in each tub, they were traveling around on these tracks. And the ultimate goal was that it was going to leave that room and go to Lufthansa 444 and be loaded in a tub and put on the plane. And so I said, gee, this is absolutely marvelous. I think this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And he said, oh, it wasn't always so good. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, when we first opened the airport, the baggage system doesn't work. I said, well, what did you do? He said, well, we go to the university, we get some students, we bring them over here, and we sort the bag by hand. I said, oh my God, how long did you do that? He said, 2 years. I said, 2 years? It took you 2 years to sort this out? He said, yeah, well, those computers are very hard to solve. Well, I came back and told Bill Smith at the airport at that time, who was the managing guy at the airport. I said, Bill, you got to get on hiring a baggage consultant because I told him the whole story, and he said, oh, you architects, all you want is more work. Well, long story short, Bill told me to go back and do my drawings and forget about it, which I did. And then the baggage system came late, and when the baggage consultants were ultimately hired, they went to the job, and the the terminal building was started, and a lot of mechanical, electrical, and all that was down underneath the slab of that. And the baggage guys got that. Tear everything out, start again. But the airport got done, and it's a success, and thank God for that. And it's behind me. I don't have to go to any more airport meetings. We were really hurt badly. I thought that this would be over in about 6 months or a year at the most. And I got a lot of people telling me who knew a lot more about economics than I did that that was what was going to happen. And obviously none of us had read the books very carefully. It got to the point where we had to figure out how to reorganize our firm. And as I said earlier, I never did learn how to pull a rabbit out of the hat. And I wound up hurt, embarrassed, and just very sad about the outcome of what happened to my dream. And I thought, I'll never be able to speak to anybody in this town again. And I was having dinner with my wife, Linda, about 6:30 one evening, and I got a phone call. It was from a man that I absolutely adore and still do to this day. Bill Muchow called me to offer me support and help. He said, I'll do whatever I can to help you. And I thought, Bill, that's the greatest thing that anybody has said to me for the last week. And I went back into dinner and I broke down into tears. I couldn't help myself. And that gave me a heart to start thinking about, what am I going to do? And I went home and sat in my favorite chair and started thinking, boy, you sure have made one heck of a mess out of everything, Jerome. I call myself Jerome when I'm mad at myself. And all of a sudden, I heard the phone ringing, and it was a doctor friend of mine, and he said, he knew nothing about what was going on, and he said, now, Seracuse, I know you've got that big office, and you know, I got that piece of ground up in Vail, and I'd like to have you design a house for me. And I said, his name was Ratzer, and his nickname was Rats, and I said, Rats, you caught me at a good time. I got a break right now. I think I could help you out. And that started a whole new life for me. Sole practitioner. Great things that happen when you're a sole practitioner is that you have your staff meetings when you shave in the morning. I was back to basics. I was doing custom homes in Vail, sole practitioner, and loving the fact that I had regained control of my life. The University of Colorado invited me to join the Design Review Board, as you recall, Mar. And I did that, and I'm still serving on that, although we had a change in presidents one time, and Hank Brown came in as the interim president, and the first thing he did was write letters to John Prosser, Eldon Beck, and myself, who were members of the DRB, and fired us. And when I saw Mr. Brown later on at the Anschutz property, I said, this is a great project, and it's going to be wonderful for Denver to have a medical center like this. I'm just sorry that I'm not going to be able to continue on and work with you on it. And he looked at me and said, well, why aren't you able to stay and work with me? I said, because you fired me, Hank. He said, well, I don't want to fire you guys. You're the old gray hair. You know about what's going on. And I said, well, that's what we thought too. And he said, well, I'm going to rehire you. So he rehired us, and we're back there, and Eldon has since retired, but John and I still hang on. In 1984, I was honored by the Institute by becoming a fellow. And that was a great milestone for me. I've gained a lot out of being a fellow. I did not realize the stature that it held. It's the first time in my life that I think I was speechless. And somebody said to me, Jerry, we've never seen you like that before. You couldn't say anything. I said, I was speechless. I was overwhelmed. Then recently, year 2009, I got a great honor from the Denver Tech Center. There's a little park on the corner of Union and Ulster. Has an old English clock on the corner. It's on the northeast corner of that intersection. It's about a 3 or 4 acre park, not a large park, but large enough for me. And it has a plaque in there, and it says that this is now Seracuse Park. And I think when I told my kids that, they said, well, you have to go to our park. I said, wait, our park? No. This is my park. Make sure that you understand what the essence of the mission is before you engage the gear shift and start running. You have to have a complete, and I'll say this again, I'll say it till the day I die, holistic attitude about problem solving. I see so many buildings that are presented to us at the DRB and presented to me at the DTC, and they don't have a sense of place. They don't have a sense of community. They don't have a sense of dignity and clarity that is so essential, in my opinion, to producing good architecture that will last through the years and serve not just 10 years, not 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. The ego statements and the adoration of monuments has been a disappointment to me in the last 8 or 10 years. There's been a lack of contribution in terms of richness to the fabric of communities. This has been the most wonderful life I could have ever imagined having. I have done things, been places, met people, created structures, solved problems, and all with such joy and happiness out of being able to do that, to serve people and serve communities and get things done. It's been a wonderful trip for me.